We are meeting here in this halfway house to talk about his mistakes. What were your life and beliefs like before you met Christ?
Well, I grew up in upstate New York in a suburban environment. I suppose the first thing was my grandfather was a minister. And while that didn't really mean anything to me at the time, that certainly was part of the fabric of what came later. In our suburban area, almost everybody went to church. I think a fair number of them probably weren't actually Christian, but back in the 50s and the 60s on Sunday, you went to church. And I certainly had that full background. We grew up in a neighborhood that didn't have crime back in those days. You could go anywhere you want in the neighborhood and your parents didn't have to worry about it. We didn't have the internet, so there was that problem that we couldn't get into. And the 3 television stations that we had were all G-rated, all programs, all the time.
Perfect.
So that kind of paved a better way of living for everybody who was in that particular area. As far as my non-Christian existence, it was probably pretty benign up into high school when I started getting interested in girls, and even that stayed fairly within bounds until I got to college, and all of the restraints were gone. That pretty well is the fabric. We went to church. It was all part of not only my fabric but the neighborhood.
So you would say perhaps that you were what people call a nominal Christian at the time, or would you say that you had a real faith in God?
When I look back, I certainly can say that I had a couple of Sunday school classes in high school that I got really involved in, because we got a really good guy, and much of what he was doing is he's bringing in the Sunday paper, and we're going through the news items of the week and relating them to the Bible and how people should act. And I really got involved in that. It did not cause me to make a commitment to Christ at that point. And I will tell you, I was in the Episcopal Church at that time. I went through the confirmation classes. When it came to kneel up at the altar and accept from the bishop, I gave him all the words, but in my mind I was screaming, no, I don't believe that. And to this day, I believe that was God telling me that wasn't real, what was going on at that altar.
Sure. Who were the most instrumental people then in bringing you to Christ?
Well, again, the mere fact that my grandfather was there and was a minister, that...
Was he Episcopal, or...? He
started out as a Methodist.
Okay.
And he went to the Episcopal Church because he thought those Methodists were a little too wild and woolly.
Oh boy.
So he was certainly first. The next one is that Sunday school teacher that I mentioned. He had a genuine impact on me.
Yeah.
And the third one, I was a newly minted engineer at Raytheon. Part of my job was to support the maintenance and repair technicians. I had to go out to the shop one day to help a fellow. He was having trouble fixing a supply, and he was a fellow that they called the preacher man. He would spend every minute he could evangelizing. And while we're sitting there and I'm trying to get some work done on the equipment, he was talking to me. By the time we got his unit fixed and I had been clearly talked to, he gave me a tract. I went back to my desk, I read the tract, and I said, yes, Lord, this is what I want.
Wow.
And I became a Christian at my engineering desk in Raytheon.
Wow. How old were you at that point?
28-ish.
28-ish. Okay. Do you remember anything in particular about the guy's conversation, about what he said to you?
I really don't have much recollection of it because I was a newly minted engineer and I was trying to do well and show people that I could get the job done. And I was working very hard to get him to pay attention to the repair he was supposed to be doing.
Because you were teaching him how to fix this, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other way, yeah.
He'd gone as far as he could with his understanding,
Yeah.
and it wasn't my job to come over there and fix it. It was my job to lead him through fixing so that future ones would be easy. And he just kept giving me the gospel of, sin and the need for repentance, and we eventually got his unit fixed.
Yeah. Got there eventually.
We didn't have to do overtime to do it.
This is good.
And he handed me that tract, and
And you remember feeling frustrated at him or positive towards him, or any particular feeling there when you left?
well, certainly frustrated
Yeah.
because I wasn't a Christian, I wasn't thinking Christian thoughts, and I had a job to do.
Sure.
Uh,
So,
But
so
I am glad that he didn't give up.
yeah. And so you left the conversation with him, if anything, feeling slightly, irritated. But you then went back
And
and
I
read the
the
tract.
stupid tract,
Yeah.
and it was all over.
And it hit you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
How has your life changed from then on?
One of the things that I can tell you that many people, and maybe most people, don't necessarily have an immediate physical change that they notice.
Yeah.
The minute I accepted Christ, I felt a physical weight lifted from me.
Mm. Wow.
When I walked down the hall, I had to look to see if my feet were touching the ground. And I don't know of anybody else who's had that sort of thing, but I did. God apparently knew I needed to know it was real.
Sure, right.
For quite a while thereafter, I was really on fire.
Yeah.
I was so... I don't know. I was so taken, grateful, whatever, by what had happened.
Right.
I wanted to tell everybody. I wanted to go out and do every possible thing I could for the Lord, get involved in the church. That waned over time,
Sure.
but that was an immediate change,
Mm.
and that lasted quite a while. And I got heavily involved in the church that I was at the time. It was a Methodist church. Over time, it's been 46 years, and he's still got a ways to go. But he took away smoking.
Mm.
One time later, he took away booze.
Mm.
At this date, I do not have one single one of my non-Christian friends.
Really? Okay.
And, we've just floated away from each other, but I know what was happening.
Yeah.
God was taking me out of the world, as it were.
Sure.
There's still a long ways to go. And of course, along the way, he blessed me with a Christian wife and two wonderful kids who are now up and doing their own thing. And I can tell the people who are looking at this video, who think that this is not real, that yes, it had to start out with a step of faith. And then I'm able to look back on the events of my life and say, God did this, God did that, and God did that. And some people would say, well, that was just a coincidence. And I say, well, man, that was a nice coincidence. And then later, that was a nice coincidence. And there comes a point in time when it dawns on you, there aren't that many coincidences in the world. God is real, God has saved me, and you need to talk to him too.